There was a time when most American families feared debt more than they desired things. They bought fewer cars, smaller homes, and if they couldn't afford something, they waited. Not because they were poor, because owing money felt different back then. A paid-off home meant security, a savings account meant freedom, and sleeping without debt was considered one of life's greatest luxuries. Today, debt has become a normal part of life. But just a few generations ago, millions of American families lived another way. So what changed? To understand how 1960s families stayed debt-free, you have to understand where they came from. Because these weren't just people who happened to be careful with money. These were people who had been shaped by something, marked by it. You could see it in the way your grandfather folded a dollar bill before putting it in his wallet. The way your grandmother saved rubber bands in a kitchen drawer and washed aluminum foil and reused it until it fell apart. These people had lived through the Great Depression. And the Depression didn't just empty bank accounts. It rewired something deep in the American psyche. An entire generation learned, not from books, not from school, but from hunger, that the distance between comfort and ruin could be measured in a single bad season. Then came World War II. And men who had barely recovered from the Depression went overseas. And women who had managed households on almost nothing kept managing them on even less. Rationing, scarcity, making do. By the time the 1960s arrived, the parents raising families in split-level homes in Dayton, Ohio and bungalows in Pasadena, California had already survived two of the most economically brutal decades in American history. Debt to them wasn't just inconvenient. It was dangerous. It was what happened before everything fell apart. And that fear became a philosophy. Here's what's remarkable. 1960s families didn't stay debt-free by accident. They had a system. And it worked so naturally that most of them never even thought of it as a system. It was just life. It started with the envelope. Not a metaphor. An actual envelope. Dozens of them, sometimes, lined up in a kitchen drawer or tucked in a shoebox on a closet shelf. One envelope said rent. Another said groceries. Another said Christmas. Another said car repair. Every payday, cash went into each envelope. And when an envelope was empty, you were done spending in that category until next pay period. No app. No spreadsheet. No financial advisor. Just an envelope. And discipline. In 1963, the average American family earned around $6,200 a year. That's roughly $62,000 in today's dollars. And on that income, a single income in most households, they bought homes, raised children, took vacations, and retired without drowning in credit card debt. Because in 1963, credit cards barely existed for ordinary people. The Bank AmeriCard, what would eventually become Visa, had only just started expanding nationally. Most families didn't have one. If you wanted something, you saved for it. If you needed something big, you went to your local savings and loan, a place where the manager knew your name and your father's name, and you borrowed carefully with a fixed payment and a clear end date. The mortgage was the one acceptable debt, because a house was real. You could touch it. You could hand it to your children. Everything else? You waited. And waiting had a culture around it. Layaway was not a last resort. It was the preferred method. You went to Sears or Montgomery Ward, picked out a washing machine or a winter coat, put a small deposit down, made weekly payments, and picked it up when it was paid in full. The store held it. You never took it home until it was yours. Think about that. You didn't use the thing until you'd earned the right to it. That wasn't deprivation. That was a relationship between desire and reward that kept an entire nation financially grounded. If this video made you think about your grandparents differently, tell us one thing they taught you about money that you still carry with you today. And if this kind of American history hits different for you, subscribe and share. Because we're just getting started. But money systems don't survive in a vacuum. They need a culture to hold them up. And 1960s America had one. The neighbors knew what you drove. The church knew if you were struggling. Your mother knew how much you spent on curtains because she helped you hang them. There was a social accountability built into daily life that made reckless spending genuinely embarrassing. You didn't flash things you couldn't afford, because everybody knew what you could afford. And here's what television, the great new technology of that era, was telling families every single night. It wasn't showing them lifestyles they could never reach. It was showing them themselves. Ward and June Cleaver, Ozzie and Harriet, Rob and Laura Petrie. These were families living in modest homes, wearing ordinary clothes, dealing with ordinary problems. Nobody on those shows was trying to keep up with anyone. The culture of enough was embedded in the entertainment, in the advertising, even in the church pew on Sunday morning, where a good sermon might remind you that wanting too much was a spiritual problem, not just a financial one. And then there were the women. Let's be honest about something that history often glosses over. The reason 1960s households stayed solvent was, in enormous part, because of the women running them. The household budget was a full-time intellectual exercise. Clipping coupons from the Sunday paper, specific coupons, cross-referenced against what was on sale at the A&P that week. Making a roast on Sunday that became sandwiches on Monday, stew on Tuesday, and soup by Wednesday. Sewing a child's dress from a simplicity pattern instead of buying one at J.C. Penney. This wasn't frugality out of desperation. This was mastery. A skill set passed from mother to daughter with the same seriousness that a trade was passed from father to son. The 1960s household budget was a living document. And the woman who managed it was, in every real sense, the family's chief financial officer. Something started shifting in the late 1960s. Slowly. The way most important things shift. Advertising changed. In the early part of the decade, ads sold you products. By the late 1960s, they were selling you an identity, a feeling, a version of yourself that was better, cooler, more alive, if only you owned the right thing. The credit card industry began its long, patient campaign to normalize borrowing. By 1970, over 100 million credit cards were in circulation. By the mid-70s, revolving debt, the kind you carry month to month, the kind that grows, had become a standard feature of American household finances. And the cultural guardrails began to come down. Neighborhoods grew more anonymous. Suburban sprawl separated families from the social fabric that had once kept spending accountable. Television stopped showing you your neighbors and started showing you people whose lives you were supposed to want. The envelopes in the kitchen drawer got replaced by a plastic card in a wallet. And something quiet and enormous was lost. Not just the money. The mindset. The understanding that what you own should never exceed what you've earned. That waiting for something makes it mean more when it arrives. That sleeping without debt isn't deprivation. It's freedom. Here's what stays with me about the 1960s family and their relationship to money. They weren't saints. They weren't without want. They saw things in the Sears catalog that made their hearts beat a little faster. They drove past houses bigger than theirs and felt the pull of more. But they had been taught, by hardship, by community, by something passed quietly through the generations, that desire without discipline is just appetite. And appetite never gets full. The families who built post-war America with their careful envelopes and their layaway accounts and their paid-off mortgages left something behind that we don't often talk about. Not just houses and retirement savings. They left a proof of concept. That ordinary people, on ordinary incomes, could build stable, dignified lives without drowning in debt. We've been told that's no longer possible. That the economy is too complicated. That inflation makes it naive. That the system is rigged against the careful ones. Maybe some of that is true. But maybe we also just stopped keeping the envelopes. The nostalgia vault. Where every decade gets its story told. If this video made you think about your grandparents differently, drop their name in the comments. Tell us one thing they taught you about money that you still carry with you today. And if this kind of American history hits different for you, subscribe. Because we're just getting started.